Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles presented by Easton Roofing, and today it's my pleasure to speak with Julie Mulhern, a best-selling author who writes two great series of mysteries with humor and international travel injected. She has written a dozen in the Country Club Murders series, and she has a new series, well, relatively new. It's now on to just about a half dozen of the Poppy Fields adventures about a Hollywood it girl, and she travels about the world and gets involved in mysteries as well. Julie Mulhern wasn't always on a path to become a best-selling author. She grew up in Kansas City, loved to ride horses, was competitive in that area, played tennis, played golf. Also, at the age of 12, her family joined a country club, which would give her a lot of the material that she uses in the Country Club mysteries. They're set in the 1970s. They're light, they're funny, and she likes to have an enjoyable whodunit time in both of her series. And the Poppy Fields series is about traveling to exotic places and learning about that as well. They become best-selling series, and she continues to be very prolific in both of those series and has found an incredible niche as far as writing these two mystery series and has made her one of Kansas City's bright literary lights. She's fun to talk to. Her books are fun. All kinds of people like them, and she has a bright and cheery way of describing the path that has led to her success as a great writer here in Kansas City. Our pleasure, next, to speak with Julie Mulhern, right here on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
I'm here with Joe Spiker, owner of Easton Roofing. And Joe, there's all kinds of roofing companies in Kansas City. People see their trucks, they see their ads, they see their commercials on TV. What separates you out from the pack?
Danny, you know, there's a lot of roofers in Kansas City that are good roofers that can put a good roof on, but we like to pride ourselves on giving you a good customer service experience. From the first time you call, you're going to get a friendly voice on the phone. We're going to let you know what's happening and when it's happening. And, you know, the other piece is some companies are small enough to do small jobs. Some companies are big enough to do big jobs. You know, we're right there in the middle. We can handle the little stuff. We can handle your repairs all the way up to your big commercial roofs.
So what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you at Easton Roofing?
You can find us at eastonroofing.com, or you can always call us at 913-257-5426. That's 913-257-5426.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters. Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Vision's goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. It's time to visit once again with Dr. Brad Woodle of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. And Dr. Brad, your group has reached a significant milestone in receiving a prestigious award.
Danny, we've been honored for the 10th year in a row to receive the 5-Star Service Award from Integrity Doctors. And what this means is that all of our offices throughout Kansas City have made sure to give people excellent chiropractic and acupuncture care, be on time, and do a very complete and thorough job, and have great responses back from patients.
I know firsthand because I was just treated, for instance, today by you. You have a wide range of fantastic services.
Absolutely. Chiropractic, acupuncture, physiotherapies, rehab, anything that you need to keep you well in bones, muscles, joints, and nerves.
And I can't say how much it's benefited me in the time I've coming here. Upwards of 2 years, my back has improved 100%. And you can have that same kind of treatment too. For more information and your chance for a healthier way of life, visit asfca.com/Danny today. I'm here with Tim Emerson, the owner of Emerson & Company. And Tim, give us an idea of the range of services that you provide from Emerson & Company.
At Emerson & Company, we do credit card processing, payroll services, We do bookkeeping, merchant accounts like point-of-sale systems.
What would you say differentiates you from other companies in the field, and what makes you special?
I think what makes us unique is that we're a small local business making regional decisions on companies. We create a profile for the business and then put it out to our different vendors in a very competitive environment and tailor those needs to the specific business, which usually ends up in a great fit or great result for the company.
And, of course, the idea is to save money, right?
Save money, and actually sometimes I'm surprised where actually a solution that may cost a little bit more ultimately does save money, but we're not conditioned to think like that sometimes.
Emerson and Company. Check them out at emerson-co.com or call them at 816-360-9092.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Julie, let's start off with a little bit of a picture, perhaps, of what a little girl Julie Mulhern was like.
I think I was fairly typical. I grew up here in Kansas City and went to St. Paul's School and loved horses and grew up around horses, which was very fortunate. And then when I was about 12, I think my parents joined a country club, which has given me all the background I ever needed to write the Country Club Murders.
When you were growing up, besides horses, or besides, I know you had great interest in mysteries, and the mysteries like Agatha Christie and Dorothy Sayers and things like that, maybe what were some of your other interests?
I was I played a lot of Danny. I played tennis. I played golf. Mm-hmm. I rode a lot of horses and rode horses competitively, so that took up a great deal of time. Was never much of a swimmer, but was a huge reader. So I read. I think I probably started out with Nancy Drew and Encyclopedia Jones, and pretty quickly graduated to Agatha Christie and Dorothy L. Sayers, and have been a mystery lover my whole life.
When did you perhaps start to think that this might be not just a passion for reading, but a passion for doing?
I think I was probably in about 6th grade, and my 6th grade English teacher suggested to me that maybe I should be a writer, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I don't think I'd ever really considered it before then, and I loved writing, and I ended up actually in my adult life working for the Independent magazine, and wrote for them, and ended up having to stay home with one of my kiddos for a health reason for a while, and wrote for other magazines, and then was in contact with a national agent so that I could write for national magazines, and she suggested that I write a book, and I did, and it was awful, 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 and she said, don't give up, and so I wrote a second book, which was less awful, and then by the time I wrote my third book, it was good enough to be published. So, and what's interesting is I hear from lots of agents and publishers and even fellow writers that it takes 2 bad books before you can do a good one. So I think I was probably right on target.
Well, I guess I'm lucky. I've only written one book, and it's nonfiction. It's about me, so I hope it wasn't bad, because that would make me bad. So anyway, let's backtrack a little bit. When you were going through your teen years, and maybe you'd been inspired to think that this was going to be what you were going to do, did that sort of map your path as far as college was concerned?
Not remotely. I mean, I think that it was always kind of in the back of my mind that it would be cool to be a writer, but I didn't really see how it was a viable way to make a living. And I went to Washington and Lee University, which is outside of Washington, D.C. in Lexington, Virginia. And I was actually among the 100 young women who was in the first class at WNO that allowed women in, which was a fascinating time. And I double majored in politics and French. So I don't think I was really thinking about career paths other than I thought that maybe the Forest Service would be kind of cool. And then I actually went and lived in France for a while and got to know one of the resident mission directors at the embassy and figured out that that was not a life I wanted to lead. So I came home to Kansas City after college.
And at that point, what did you have any particular idea what you wanted to do?
Not a clue. I was a clueless 22-year-old, and I ended up, fortunately, working for UMB Bank for several years, and it was a wonderful place to kind of get my feet wet and make friends and understand the business world. And I'm really very fortunate, I think, that I got to live a little bit and be in banking and do some other things before I really rolled up my sleeves to become a writer, because it helped me understand the business of writing, which is not just sitting down to write the book. It's everything from how do you market the book and yourself to are you writing what people want to read.
And how did you mentioned that somebody encouraged you when you started. We'll talk about the part about heading into the world of magazines and that entree into your writing path.
Well, I got to know Lori Ingram, who at the time was the owner of the Independent magazine, through some volunteer work for the Kansas City Symphony. And Lori had me write a food column for them, and I had great fun with that. And then I guess I did a good enough job that she said, well, why don't you come work for the magazine? So I wrote a lot of the copy for the Independent magazine for a couple of years and really, really enjoyed it. And that was really sort of what put me on the path to ultimately writing fiction.
How did you feel like you were developing as a writer at this point in time, and had the thought of a book ever kind of popped into your head at that point in time?
No, I don't think I was thinking about writing fiction. I had little kids, and, working for the Independent and taking care of children and a house and a family was about all that I could handle at that point. And even when I stayed home with my child who had the health scare, I don't think that I was thinking, oh, I should write a book in this downtime. I was out talking to Kansas City Magazine and other magazines about carrying my stuff just because I was, I wanted to keep writing, and I wasn't really thinking fiction. It wasn't until I actually got an agent who said, write me a novel, that I went, okay, well, I'll write a novel. And that's a really a backward way to go about things, because most people write a novel and then look for an agent. I got an agent, and then she said, well, write a novel. So she sort of put the bug in my ear, and we went from there.
You mentioned raising young children. How did you meet your husband? Going back to the Washington and Lincoln action, I was invited to a party held by a fellow alumnus, and he and Matt were roommates, and he introduced us. So I just met him at a party. Was it kind of love at first sight type of thing, or did he have to work at it, or were you a tough catch, or how'd that work?
I think that I knew almost immediately, and I think he took a little longer to figure it out. How about that?
There you go. He was the tough catch, I guess, is the way we're talking about it. So when you get an A, like you said, you kind of did things backwards, and I know that the first thing you published was a romance novel. Is that correct?
It is. Mm-hmm.
And
that was the first thing that I wrote that was worth reading, really. So,
how about the dynamics of a romance novel? I mean, in some regards, it can be pilloried by people. What made you decide to go down that route?
It's $1 billion industry, $1 billion a year industry.
Right.
I mean, that really was what it was. I mean, my agent at the time, whose name was Joanne, said, $1 billion industry, write one. So, and I frankly was not a big reader of romance novels. And I went out and read some, and then I sat down and wrote one. And at the time, I should have figured it out, but I mean, there were people getting murdered left and right in my romance novel. So I think that I maybe figured out I was in the wrong genre. But it got written, and it was good enough to go out on submission. And it didn't sell for a while. And I was like, I was told by my agent, well, start on the next one. And I was like, well, this is just ridiculous. If it's not going to sell, I might as well write something I feel better about reading. At which point I wrote The Deep End. And then, of course, both books sold within a month of each other in 3-book deals. So all of a sudden I was on the hook for, writing another 4 books, which was from 0 to nothing was a little overwhelming.
Do you feel like the fact that you decided to go in another direction because your romance novel wasn't selling in the end turned out to be a blessing? Because it sounds from the way you're talking about it that the romance novels would have been a little more work than where their mystery stories maybe are a little more of the heart.
Well, I think that probably my voice, which tends to maybe be a little bit snarky, is probably better suited to a mystery with some humor in it than it is to, sex scenes. So I'm a much better fit as a mystery writer than I ever was as a romance writer.
You mentioned that you're a fan of Agatha Christie and Dorothy Sayers, and initially the Nancy Drew. I read all the Hardy Boys, so they were written by the same person. I guess some people don't know that, but but anyway, it seems like you were drawn more to the whodunit style of mystery writing. Agatha Christie's sort of the master of complicated plots and things like that, and Dorothy Sayers was that type of writer. For instance, my favorite writer is Raymond Chandler, who famously one time was called by a movie director for The Big Sleep, and he asked him who killed so and so, and he paused and he goes, "I don't know." So he wasn't really that consumed with that. How do you think you were drawn to the whodunit style of fiction?
I love a puzzle to this day.
Right.
I love, I like that kind of mystery because I don't really love overwrought, angsty, psychological mysteries. I like something that's kind of lighthearted and fun, and there's a puzzle as to who did it. And so that's what I like to read, and it turns out that that's what I like to write as well.
You mentioned you have, it's evident in the books, obviously, you have a bit of a snarky sense of humor, and we'll get into both series that you have, which have some similarities and clearly some differences. That's obviously why you do it. But how much fun is it to have a character or have characters that can maybe reflect a bit of your worldview, but probably not exactly, and a bit of your sense of humor, but not exactly?
It sure makes it a lot easier when they have a sense of humor, and both Ellison and Poppy have good senses of humor, and I think Ellison is, being kind of a middle-aged woman, is probably a lot closer to me. Poppy is much younger, and my younger daughters tell me I'm way far off the mark on getting a 20-something's voice right, but the idea behind that series is the travel and the fun and the adventure. And, there's so many different kinds of readers out there. I think that across the board, we're living in a niche world anymore. And, there are so many different genres, and then within the genres, subgenres, that I really think, the first people who like the funny mystery with kind of a heroine with a little bit of edge, I'm a good fit.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
I'm here with David Schmidt from Private Capital. And David, tell us more about your outstanding firm.
Thanks, Danny. Here at Private Capital, we focus on return on asset. In today's world, it is survival of the fittest. We look at things from all angles and try to figure out what works best for you. The changes we will see this next year on assets will be monumental. The key to success is knowledge. Know where you want to go, and we'll be here along the way. To find out more, give us a call at 816-221-7775.
David Schmidt from Private Capital with the best service for you.
Right now, it's more important than ever to support local businesses. And 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence is open and ready to take care of you. Make 23rd Street Brewery part of your KU game day experience, whether you watch the game there or grab curbside pickup for your tailgates or watch parties.
But not just game days. 23rd Street Brewery is great any day of the week, and when the weather's nice, you can take advantage of their heaters on the patio. 23rd Street Brewery is open daily from 11:30 to 9 for dine-in, carry-out, curbside pickup, and can even help with your catering needs.
So support local and visit a Lawrence favorite, 23rd Street Brewery.
Firsthand, I have enjoyed the benefits of the CBD products from Canaway. My back feels better and better these days, as a major part of my routine are the pain-relieving salve and the Pure Gold oil. And recently, I had the pleasure of a treatment session using the Canaway CBD in conjunction with the Microlight 830 cold laser. The non-invasive treatment session worked wonders, and I could barely tell I was even being touched. TML 830 is the first 3B cold laser to get FDA approval, and in addition, the combination treatment with CBD is patent pending. The new Smart Laser is the only hands-free cold laser in the world and is used by athletic trainers, chiropractors, MDs, physical therapists, and veterinarians everywhere. You can learn more about all the great benefits from the complete line of Canaway CBD products by contacting my friend Sherry McCants at 515-208-6312. That's 515-208-6312 to get outstanding information about Canaway. Most of us have experienced auto accidents, and it's no fun. And even less fun is trying to work on the insurance aspects afterwards and getting full value after an auto accident. I'm here with David Cowan from RecExpert.com. And David, you have an unusual and important niche for people after an auto accident.
We have a passion to teach car wreck clients what they deserve. Getting your car repaired only fixes the damage and the paint. Getting paid for your car's loss in value is called diminished value. Chances are you've never heard of this before because most people aren't looking out for you. We help people collect thousands to tens of thousands of dollars for their car's loss in value after the wreck.
And if somebody wants to come to you for that, what's the original assessment cost them?
We offer a free review of any insurance claim to see how we can help.
You can't beat that. Great expertise and assistance in getting full value after an auto accident from David Cowan. Visit RecExpert.com and learn more. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Our guest is Julie Mulhern. She, of course, is a best-selling author who has two great series, The Country Club Murders and the Poppy Fields Mysteries, Fields Guides to just about everything, and published a dozen now on the Country Club Murders. And how many Poppies now?
6. I think the 7th one comes out at the end of April.
There you go. Nothing but prolific. I'm looking at, the Night Moves, the latest one in the Ellison's genre, just came out in February, and then you got one in April. So obviously you're somebody who can really put out a lot of material. When you started writing books and you were still raising older children at that point in time, what's the life balance like for a writer?
I did what a lot of writers did for many years, which is get up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning and then work until 7 or 7:30 and then get the kids out the door and then go to work. And I did that for years and years and years. I am a full-time writer now, and so the balance is a little bit easier and different. Sometimes I kind of miss that. Oh my God, I've only got 2 hours to get it all done, and you push. Now, where I could write 1,000 or 2,000 words into that amount of time. Now I'm like, la, 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 la. And it takes me a little bit longer to get my work done for the day.
How did you mentioned at the outset the fact that you joined a country club when you were 12, and so you had all the material you would ever need for the country club mysteries. Describe what appealed to you about putting that country club world into your literary world.
There's an adage, really, among writers and among editors and whatnot, that people like to peek behind the curtain, as it were, and write what you know, and those kinds of things. And I thought, or I hoped, that maybe people would want to peek behind the world of a country club. And so far, it seems like they do.
It absolutely seems like they do. Since you did have a background in the country club world, and then you started writing very popular books about the country club world, have you ever gotten into any, quote, sort of, not trouble, but have you ever had people say, I think you're talking about so-and-so there, or I think you're talking about me there, or anything like that? Does that happen?
I've had people tell me they're absolutely certain that I based certain characters on people they know, and really, it is not true. I've only ever put one real person in my books, and she didn't realize it. So, thank heavens. She made me mad, and I made her really awful. So.
I've read that you say you write chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, so on and so forth. But but if you're going to write like you do whodunits, don't you have to do that part of it backwards to forwards or not?
No, you really don't. I mean, I've written books where I knew exactly who did it, and I've written books where I wasn't quite sure who the killer was until I got to the end, and then I went, of course. So I think your subconscious helps you out quite a bit on that. And frankly, from an editing perspective, if I don't know who the killer is, I'm a little bit better off because I haven't given anything away because I didn't know it.
That's very interesting. That's really interesting. Talk about. I also have seen that you've said you've had a good editor, or have had good editors. What is the relationship for a writer who is successful, who knows what she does that works, and an editor? Can it ever get contentious, or do you just sort of work together and come to a place where you know each other pretty well, or do you ever just put your foot down and say, I think that's good, I'm not touching it?
Ultimately, my name is on the book.
Right.
I would say that I've been very fortunate, and the editors that I have worked with have been partners, and we are united in the idea that we want to put out the best book possible. And there are times where, I might have a chapter in there that doesn't need to be there, or, in my mind, I know exactly what has happened, but I somehow haven't gotten it on the page the way it needs to be. And, that's where the editor will step up and say, yeah, I didn't get that. We need to work on this scene or that scene. So I think that, that partnership is absolutely invaluable. And finding an editor and finding the editor where your simpatico, as it were, is so important.
When you started to have some success with the Country Club Murders, what motivated you to want to have another series?
Because mentally it's good for me to take a break from Ellison and write something different. I think that I would get burned out pretty quickly if all I wrote was Country Club Murders. It's really nice to go on an adventure with Poppy in Egypt or Greece or New Orleans or wherever she happens to be. And it's kind of a palate cleanser. And then when I'm done with a Poppy, I can't wait to dive into another Ellison. When I've finished an Ellison, I'm like, yay, I get to go traveling. Even if it's armchair.
Right. And I know you say now you've got daughters in college, and that there's obviously in the circumstances of the past year, there's less travel. How much in the past did you use it as an excuse for travel, or do you almost always armchair it and use books and things like that.
I've been armchairing it since the beginning. There are a couple locations for Poppy where I would really like to go and do a deep dive. And when I do that, I was like, I think that Poppy is at some point going to end up in Ireland, and I'm, waiting until I can, really go and make sure that I have a deep understanding of Dublin before I write that book. So, there are some places that Poppy will go where I'd actually like to go and visit. I think I do a better job if I've actually been to the place where Poppy is going. So.
You mentioned obviously Ellison is the lead character in the Country Club Murders and the person who solves the Country Club Murders. And how do you sort of, and you say she's closer in age to what you are, and so that there's some natural similarities. How autobiographical, or how do you keep, a balance between, obviously there's going to be some of yourself in a character that you're that intrinsically involved with. Talk about your relationship with Ellison.
Ellison, fortunately, my husband hasn't been murdered, and I haven't run over him with a car or any of those kinds of things. Ellison and I kind of have a similar worldview and have sort of a little voice in our heads that says things that we maybe shouldn't say out loud. Ellison is just, Ellison is not me. I mean, she's braver than me. She's prettier than me. She's more outgoing than I am. All the things I think maybe I'd like to be, I gave to Ellison. And I think if you talk to authors frequently, if they've created a signature character, there's usually some of that in there.
How do you feel like Ellison has evolved, and how much do you like Ellison?
Ellison is, over the course of the series, Ellison has evolved quite a bit. The Country Club Murders are set in the 1970s.
Right.
And one of the reasons there are a couple of reasons I liked the 70s, but one of the reasons I really liked the 70s to set a series was because it was a time when so much changed for women. And, Ellison has gone from sort of being a kept housewife who was also an artist and, created the cardinal sin of making more money than her husband, to someone who is really kind of a feminist and, understands women's issues. And I try, when I'm writing a Country Club Murder, to actually touch on women's issues, whether it is, financial issues or abuse, or, I think I've touched on all sorts of different women's issues in the course of 12 books. And it's really, I think she's really evolved as an independent woman.
How do you feel like writing these two series of books, and maybe obviously the Country Club Murders, both series are tremendously successful. How do you feel like it's caused you as a person to evolve, if at all?
Wow. I think I probably am maybe more outgoing. I don't know, Danny. I honestly do not know the answer to that. More outgoing, but that might just be COVID, because when I do see people now, I'm like more happy to see them than ever in my life. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer.
How has your husband reacted to your fame and fortune, as it were?
I think he's genuinely thrilled. He got a little guff, I think, at the beginning because Ellison's first husband was not a very nice man, and I think people kind of teased him a little bit. But he was obviously not Henry, the murdered husband. So I think he's just generally very happy for me.
How have you enjoyed the process of watching and raising two daughters and seeing them grow and develop as people?
Oh my gracious. My daughters are just, and I think every mother would say this, my daughters are just amazing. They are, they're the light of our lives. My oldest is getting ready to go to law school, and my youngest is a sophomore at Mizzou. And they're just, it's just fun to see them be such wonderful people. I'm very, very, very lucky woman when it comes to my daughters.
Did they, at any point in time, think that they wanted to do what Mom does?
No. And I cannot tell you how glad they were when their mom decided she didn't want to write any more romances. I think they were mortified by that. They'd much rather have me kill people than write sex scenes.
I can well understand that. Do you feel you obviously write books on a regular basis? They're successful. There's demand for them. How much pressure is that?
You know, I think that it is. I try and write the best book that I can, and I kind of know what my readers expect and hope for, and I just hope that I don't let them down. But if I sat and thought about the pressure of turning out a better book every time, it would be, I think, a little bit paralyzing. I do the best that I can, and I think anybody who is creative and is creative in a commercial realm understands sometimes you have hits and sometimes you have misses.
How do you react? Everybody's going to, at some point in time, have somebody who doesn't like their work. How do you react to that?
It doesn't really, honestly, doesn't bother me. I try and think of it like this. So I don't like sushi, just don't like it. So you could put the best sushi in the world in front of me, and I would be like, And, not all books are for all people. And there's a huge market out there for dark, deep, twisted, angsty psychological thrillers. And the person who loves those kind of books is probably not going to like my lighthearted, funny murder mysteries. So, and if they do find themselves reading them, they generally are like, well, and which I get, and it's fine. Not everybody's going to like my stuff. Fortunately, a few people do.
They do indeed, and I think some people like I go to a lot of independent movies. Some people want to go to the movies just to escape and have pure escapism. Mm-hmm. Not to say that that's exactly what your books are, but I mean, there's different things for each and every person. Do you feel like do you ever feel at all in either series boxed in by they're not formulaic, but by the formula that people really do enjoy?
Well, I think that the idea is, well, first of all, if we're going to say that I write genre fiction and then I write murder mysteries, and that there is the formula in a murder mystery, frankly, is that someone gets murdered and the murder is solved. Right. And that's a pretty broad framework within which to work.
Right.
So I don't really feel constrained by that.
What do you think the future holds for your two ladies?
The
fictional ones, I mean.
Right. Let's see. So Ellison, Ellison finds bodies all the time, and I don't foresee that changing for her. Poppy will keep traveling. It's just, it's fun. I mean, right now she's in Greece. The next book where she is going to release in April, Poppy's in Greece. I'm giving myself a little breather after that. I'm probably not going to have another Poppy come out for a while. I don't know where she's off to next, but I've got, my readers suggest places all the time. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, that sounds fun. So it might be Morocco is what we're thinking.
And what is your relationship like with your readers? You know, being an author is a really unique form in the fact that people get so much immersed in books that are series, and then, you know, by the nature of the business, you go out and speak to groups and readers, and they're invested. It's really I did a bunch of book signings when I wrote my book, and it was about cancer, so there's a lot of connections there, and it was really unbelievably rewarding to talk to the people who enjoyed or were touched by it. That must be a great feeling for you too.
Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, I love book clubs. Love them. And I years ago, some marketing person said, you don't have to do everything. Just pick one and do it well when it comes to social media. And I sort of landed on Facebook. And so I have my personal page on Facebook, and I usually post 70s pictures on there every day. Then I have an author page, and then I have a readers group. So I'm on Facebook, every morning, and people message me and send me funny pictures, and I love hearing from readers, and I love hearing about how much they love Ellison or Poppy, or it's just tremendous fun. Very rewarding to know that people are enjoying the books.
When you started getting published, did you feel like you would be at this point, and how rewarding is it for you, and what is the feeling like to have the tremendous amount of success that you've had?
Here's the thing, and I think that for every newbie author, whether they admit it or not, they're absolutely sure that their book is the book that is going to take off from nothing and end up at the top of the New York Times list. And that doesn't happen very often. They call them black swans, and it's a very, very rare occurrence. So before I was published, I thought that I published one book and I would be set, and that was great. I figured out very, very quickly that to make a living as a writer, you need a decent-sized backlist, and you need to be fairly prolific. And so I managed to do those things, and I have a great job. I love writing. I love making up stories. I love putting my characters in horrible positions and then figuring out how they're going to get out of them. I mean, it's a great job. And I'm very fortunate that I sell enough books that I get to do it.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.